Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us on another edition of Grown Folks Business. Happy Thursday. That's the day before Friday, before we really celebrate the coming weekend. Tonight's topic, I'll cut straight to the chase. Tonight's topic is what does a solution-based approach to systemic racism look like? So I kind of went with that as the topic, but the whole idea around tonight's discussion is actually sharing what solutions that you would contribute or provide if you were in that space and place where things were going to get moving based on what ideas you share. So I'm taking this question seriously. What solutions do you have in mind for really addressing systemic racism, for really fixing all of the ills and all of the things that are taking place in America, and specifically to Black Americans? So with that in mind, I kind of want to, as I normally do, reference history. You got to know how you got somewhere, right? So a big part of the reason that I obsess over corrective measures in terms of Black Americans is because a specific injustice was done to Black Americans. And when something specific happens to a group of people, there has to be specific redress. You have to fix that group of people. So I'm going to play a video that I feel like is a quick and fast historical lesson concerning Reconstruction. That is one of the greatest failures in American history, in my mind. It had a moment of success, as W.B. Du Bois says, a moment in the sun before you return back towards slavery. So I'm going to play a clip that kind of explains it. It's from the Sunday morning show, and then we'll come back and we're going to wrestle with the ideas concerning, how we address the system of racism. That I'll say this: slavery happened. We know it happened. A war happened. Slavery ended. The opportunity to fix those people that were affected for generations upon generations by slavery, the opportunity was had and then subverted. And that's what the video will unpack, and we'll come back on the other side of it and talk some more. Give me 1 second. All right. Mary, you can see my video? I can't see you anymore. Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, the video's up. I don't know if you have the sounds activated.
A closer look at a period in our history, both maligned and misunderstood.
Call it the original Great Escape. On May 13, 1862, just over a year into the Civil War, an enslaved man named Robert Smalls, who labored on a Confederate steamer in South Carolina's Charleston Harbor, set into motion a daring plan.
He saw that the Confederate crew had left, and he knew that oftentimes they left for the evening, not to come back until the next day.
As his great-great-grandson Michael Bulwer Moore explains, for Smalls and 6 other slaves and their families, the stakes couldn't have been higher.
They knew that if they got caught, that they would be not just killed, but probably tortured in a particularly egregious and public manner.
Disguising himself in the top hat and long overcoat of a Confederate captain, Smalls piloted the ship past Fort Sumter towards the Union blockade and freedom.
It really blew people's minds because, it just was beyond what people thought an enslaved person could do.
Not every great story has to become a movie, but, come on.
There's so many twists and turns in the story that would be just amazing.
And how about this for a second act? After returning home to Beaufort, South Carolina, Robert Smalls was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, one of more than a dozen African Americans to serve in Congress during the period known as Reconstruction, when the formerly rebel states were reabsorbed into the Union and 4 million newly freed African Americans were made citizens.
It was a time of unparalleled hope.
Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates has produced a new documentary about Reconstruction, airing this month on PBS.
When you look at the radical, amazing changes that happened within a few years of the demise of slavery, there was a kind of irrational exuberance.
Gates says Reconstruction is one of the most misunderstood chapters in American history.
Black men could vote, and they were about to elect congressmen to represent them throughout the South.
I mean, you go and you ask people on the street who the first black person was elected to the U.S. Congress, they're going to guess it's the 1960s, the 1970s.
And they would never guess it was Hiram Revels from Mississippi.
Hiram Rhodes Revels was born free and served as a chaplain to black regiments during the Civil War. On February 25th, 1870, he was sworn in as a senator from Mississippi, an office once held by Jefferson Davis, who left the Senate to become president of the Confederacy. Is this a big national moment?
Oh, it's a historic moment, and it's memorialized in the famous Currier and Ives lithograph that shows the first senator and members of the House of Representatives who were African Americans.
The famed printing house created this lithograph featuring the African American members of Congress, all of them Southerners, all of them Republicans, in 1872.
Wow, look at that.
Harvard University's Houghton Library houses one of the few known copies.
When Frederick Douglass saw the portrait of Hiram Revels, he said, "At last the black man has represented something other than a monkey."
So some of these men, 7 years before, are slaves.
That's right, absolutely. There were only 2 of these men who were born free.
It's the first time in this country, or really anywhere, that an interracial democracy was created.
Columbia University historian Eric Foner estimates that about 2,000 African Americans held some kind of public office during Reconstruction.
We tend to think of slaves as ignorant or unsophisticated, but they had been living in American society for their whole lives, and their parents had too. The slave trade from Africa had ended long before. These people were Americans, and they wanted the same rights, the same opportunities as free white people had.
How gutsy was it for these guys not just to try to be elected, but to get seated and to actually demand equality?
Lawrence Otis Graham wrote a book about Mississippi Senator Blanche K. Bruce, who was born a slave in Virginia before becoming a successful plantation owner in Mississippi. Bruce and his wife Josephine were one of the wealthiest African-American couples in America and lived in this townhouse in an integrated Washington, D.C. neighborhood.
This is not someone who was in over their head. This was someone who, despite all of the odds against him, succeeded enormously.
The year he's seated in the Senate, 1875, is the apex of black representation during Reconstruction. 7 House members and 1 senator. So that's the high point.
Yeah, no, it is. And so, but he doesn't get to enjoy that high point very long with his colleagues.
When neither candidate in the 1876 presidential election secured enough votes in the Electoral College to be declared winner, a deal was struck. Southern Democrats agreed to back Republican candidate Rutherford B. Hayes. In exchange, the federal troops who had protected black voters were withdrawn from the South. Black voting rights were gradually stripped away. Black representation in Congress faded. Reconstruction was over, and the Jim Crow era of segregation began. For most of the 20th century, Reconstruction was portrayed as a failure. This is how the South Carolina state legislature was depicted. D.W. Griffith's 1915 The Birth of a Nation. That movie, which cast the Ku Klux Klan as heroes, was a sensation with white audiences. President Woodrow Wilson even hosted a screening at the White House. And most schools taught Reconstruction as a misadventure at best.
That's what I was taught in high school in the 1950s. Reconstruction was the worst period in American history. It was a travesty of democracy. Black people misused the right to vote. Were not capable of serving in public office. That was taught everywhere.
For a young Henry Louis Gates, this was particularly painful.
And the few black kids in my class would put the textbook up over our face and slink down in our chairs because it was all so embarrassing.
But over the last 25 years, Reconstruction in some schools has been given a much fuller treatment.
As soon as African Americans have the right to vote, they become a majority in several southern states.
And in 2017, the Reconstruction era National Monument was established in Robert Smalls' hometown of Beaufort, South Carolina. Just down the road, you can see the house he lived in as a free man and the church he attended. Alongside it is a bust of Smalls, the only known statue in the South of any of the pioneering black congressmen of Reconstruction.
They were no different than other congressmen. They weren't all great geniuses, and they weren't rabble like you saw in Birth of a Nation. Well, I think the black congressmen are worth studying, not only in their own right, but as symbols of a very big effort in our history to make this an interracial democracy.
All right. Everybody there, everybody with me? What you guys think of the clip? Jess, what'd you think?
It's something I never knew about.
Wow. I think that's intentional, right?
Yes.
What about you, Danya? What'd you think?
Yeah, definitely. I was amazed yet disappointed that I saw about the movie about the KKK being heroes.
Yeah. Birth of a Nation, that was a big part of my thesis. Well, not a big part. It was a part of my thesis because I believe the power of media is real. And as you can see at that moment in time, utilized to make black folks look like monsters and celebrated by the then president of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. What did you think, Meryl?
I mean, I just harken back to, I thought a lot about like this harnessing of people, black folks politically and economically, and think about all of the elements that created Wilmington before the massacre and before those riots, and how like you had this society. I'm gonna say it about, enslaved folks were part of this culture, part of this society, and they were learning, and they were like, one way to organize to get things going is to have some political sway. And there was a very brief time where representation was really heavy, and there was a coalition and a lot of politically powerful black folks all wiped away because of what that represented.
Very important and critical to anybody that listens or thinks in terms of history and the newness of black people desiring to improve their position. It's always been here. It's been here since the beginning. Black folks protested slavery before they left the shores, before they owned the slave ships. when they got here, the dismal swamps of North Carolina became hideouts. Some committed mass suicides. They would rather go back, try to walk back to Africa than to be slaves in the new land. But on top of that, when this country is being established, there are Black people who are excited about the revolution also. They're coming up with things and writing things and saying, we're going to be a part of this new country and we're going to be free here, right? So we've always been involved in the process. Black Americans have always been involved in what it is to be American. Built the country. So even at the time of Reconstruction, when the celebration of freedom is taking place, when the celebration of representation is taking place, when I often recall this moment where a Black formerly enslaved man looks at a white person and he says, "Bottom rail on top now, boss." There's something not just tangible in that freedom. There's something psychological in that. And the amount of energy that was placed in defeating that good feeling, that good intention, that it's despicable, right? But a couple of points from the film to go along with, we're going to come up with some solutions tonight. We're going to fix everything tonight, y'all. We're going to fix it all tonight. So there's this high level conversation in the short that I just showed you concerning voting. Suffrage was critical and important. And in my mind today, I wrote something down that I thought should resonate with us now, because they still hold that importance of voting over our heads, and it's been perverted. It's no longer for our benefit. It's just a thing. So I'm thinking of this because I wrote this because I thought about Georgia, right? Georgia's got this big thing going on with the discussion about the voting rights and what their legislature is doing, and businesses are saying, "Nah, we're not going to do business there," and celebrities saying we're not going to do stuff there. But my thoughts are, the condemnation of voting laws is not equivalent to the condemnation of benign neglect of a specific group of American citizens. What are they voting for? And I'm not against voting. I'm not averse to it. But what are you voting for if your status has not improved, if your place in society remains in a despicable position, and has attachments to that time frame that we just watched? Right after Reconstruction, they take away everything, all the gains that were made. Incrementally, you get them back. Civil Rights Act happens in the 60s, get it back. But damn, now they wrestling with it in another way, but it's never fully benefited us. We've never been fully included here, except for that brief moment. And when you mentioned the Wilmington Massacre, it takes place in 1898. Yeah, that was like the death knell of any participation in government for a long period of time in the South by Black Americans. Crazy times. Brother Michael, I did not get your input. What did you think of the mini short documentary, I guess?
Short, bravery. I like the bravery. To get out of the situation they was in, the things that they would do. Things that we need now is bravery. In this daytime now, we need more brave heart warriors to have these uncomfortable conversations that hold people accountable.
Yeah, symbolism and false representation will no longer do. Not in my opinion.
No.
And I'm not rah-rah about this. I'll sit and have a conversation with anybody that's rational. Now, I can't do irrational people right now. Don't have the patience for you. If you're just willy-nilly running off of the mouth about stuff and ain't got nothing to really back it up, I can't. But if you're a rational human being, as I would hope most of our representatives are, but they're clearly not, I would love to just have a conversation about why we have to do something. So we're all in agreement we have to do something, right? If we're all in agreement that something has to be done, give me some of those things that you think actually address this system of oppression, this systemic racism. Just what you got any off the top of your head or something that's always been there and you just want to share it?
I think you need to go at them head on. Even though it may feel uncomfortable, make them accountable. Make them, if they say they ain't racist, then prove that you're not racist.
What about you, Brother Mike?
Accountability, man. As Brother Jay said, you say you're not, shows you're not. And you know, that goes not just for the whites, but every race. It goes for everyone. You know, you can say a lot of things, but actions speak louder than words. So I say that to say this, that I'm at the point, and our brother Jay Jared, he said it great the other night, man. You know, I'm not gonna be at places that's not trying to make something happen. You know, that's not about what I'm about. That's not trying to shake some things up. That's not standing for what we need to stand for. You know, enough is enough. We know that in some of these places that we go to, these people are not for us. Our own black people, white people, Hispanic, Asians. So we need to start holding these people accountable. How do we hold them accountable? A lot of people get frustrated with protesting, but protesting stops things. It stops your money, stops people from coming to your business, stop people interacting around. We slow down the traffic. We slow down the world when we protest. We'll march, and I know people say we've been marching for 400. We've been marching. We have been. But guess what? If we march and then we gather together with groups that can do petitions and make things happen, we can shake some things up. It's more than just marching. We must march with people that want to make changes, and then after we march, we need to say, well, we need to do a follow-up meeting. We need to all meet next Saturday and talk about what we done at this march. Now, what's the things we can do to impact in our communities? Enough is enough.
So I think your marching leads to representation. It's got to happen. That's got to take place. You got to have like-minded people. If you marching all the time, which we have been marching for a long time, Mike, why? Because we don't have representation. We don't have the people in places to make it so, oh, we need to fix that. No, we got people that skirt, kick the can down the road, dodge it, or don't engage with it and just wait for the marches to die down. Representation is one of my solutions. So I'm listening to solutions here. I want us to fix this tonight. So representation is one of mine. What you got, Danya? Any thoughts? I'm including you heavy tonight. We need black male presence here. So what you got? Any thoughts? Solutions? You gotta unmute yourself, Danya. Yeah, I know you're a producer.
Oh, I kind of like the only solution I have is like basically the same thing you said. Was I had to think heavily about that, but no, nothing I can think of right now.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, representation matters, input matters, and sometimes just having a moment to think about it matters. So take your time. Mary, what you got?
A few things come to mind. I mean, like, so, like most of the solutions I look at when it comes to, I guess when I'm thinking about doing this type of work, I rely on the type of community development training and stuff that I have seen works in communities. And typically, what's not super effective is like coming in and looking at where you have weak points. Like, so a lot of people do community development and they do it like in a deficit, where they see where things are weak and say, okay, I want to fix this, fix that, instead of figuring out where your strengths are and then deconstructing and distilling like what the issues are. And so I do agree with you. Representation is super important. Civic engagement is super important. Economic liberation and figuring out why are people in certain situations and what can you start doing. The thing that's frustrating to me is there are, I don't know what a Black American community is anymore. I don't know. It's frustrating to me. I don't know who that is. I hear these stories and people talk about, well, if we get together, we have, you know, the Black dollar or Black community this, Black community that. I don't know who that is, because there was a time where folks that were in trades and in farming or people that were, you know, quote unquote, in professional spaces and elite were like aligned. And I've struggled to kind of figure out how to create that space to where you have these multiple folks in these different tribes within the same affinity group pushing across having the same goal. Because like in theory, we should all have the same goal, but it doesn't operate that way in practicality, because people are tribal. And once you get to a certain space, you don't feel like you're part of that group's issue, but you all can relate and sympathize and be hurt when you see some of these things that happen and people are struggling. But when it comes down to it, I am at a loss of trying to figure out what exactly is that community. It's fractured, and you can't, and what works in community development in places where people hold power, they have found a way to be able to galvanize groups of people together that have a common goal and are working towards something, and they become more powerful, or powerful enough to make people who make decisions at an institutional level react and do their bidding, or, you know, have their self-interest be aligned. But until you can have people individually have their own agency and realize their own agency, and to create like these strong coalitions that have some power to force institutions to change the way that they're operating, you can't have really any real effective change until you figure out ways to do that. So that's the struggle.
Reparations has to take place also. That's the economic piece. That's the economic component. You restrict the people from gaining and maintaining and passing on wealth, generational wealth being accumulated. If that's prevented, then that's going to be an effect, a negative effect on any ability to attain representation. Significant, well-constructed representation that actually addresses the specific group it's supposed to represent, because we symbolically have some representation, right? We got a Black caucus, but they're more concerned with
it doesn't represent the whole.
They're more of a concern with immigration activities and such than they are with specific redress of the Black community. And by redress, I just mean if someone does something wrong towards a people, then there has to be a correcting of those actions. Yeah, reparations is a big thing, and it's definitely attached to slavery, but there's activities that take place post-Reconstruction that took place in the 20th century that were negatively affected the Black community. And that's hard to recover from. If something's specifically done to you, you need specific redress. So another thing I wanted to kind of touch on, and if you got something else you want to add, please feel free to, wave your hand, let me know. But I'm going to ask this question because another one of my solutions is protection, real protection. And I think that goes hand in hand with the things that you also mentioned, Meryl. There has to be real protections for the group, the most fractured, the most exploited, the most vulnerable group of people needs protection. And it was mentioned in the little film I just shown, but it is a sticking point for me. when the Union troops were removed from the South by Rutherford B. Hayes, because that was the agreement for him to ascend to the presidency, the protection for Black Americans were gone. Lynchings through the roof, murders, beatings, maltreatment. That's where you lose voting rights, black codes, Jim Crow. All of that happens when a group of people is not protected. So protections has to be somewhere in there. And Brother Mike, before we came on air, you were alluding to something, a place I was going to go with this, because it's about protections. And one of my questions for you guys, and I definitely want to go around the space with this, should the punishment be harsher when Black Americans are harmed by institutions? So if the police force is an institution, the most vulnerable people are Black Americans. If they are harmed by such an institution, should it be immediately understood that the punishment is going to be harsher? And Nat Nicole, I will definitely come back to your question. I'm gonna go around with this one. So save that for me, Danya, and we'll come back to it. I like that question. But should the punishment for doing harm to Black Americans be more significant when it's from an institution? Prisons, if a university denies you based on, if it's discovered they denied you based on your race, some kind of discrimination, that business maybe should be shut down, sold off. So what do you guys think? Brother Mike, I know you have some thoughts because you actually kind of made me happy I came up with that question. But we'll start with you, Meryl. Get it together, bro.
Oh, well, no, I mean,
go ahead.
go
Go ahead.
ahead, Mike. I just, it's real quickly, like it should be. Like, I mean, the simple answer is it should be, but you can't do that unless there is a body of folks that's going to make that happen. And if you can't channel that anger into activity and you don't have the representation, like it should be. Like, to me, it's simple, but it's like until you have a group of people that can hold people accountable, it's just like a sponsor that does something and they end up firing the whoever's representing their brand because enough people have said, hey, we're going to boycott your product, or we're going to make, things hellish for you. Or, or the brother that got pushed around in the neighborhood in South Carolina, there was enough people to kind of gather around and say, hey, look, we're not going to take this. And then, the powers that be said, we're going to go ahead and take care of this staff sergeant guy. But if you don't have people that are galvanized to force the institution to act, people act on their self-interest, man. Institutions act on self-interest. So,
but there's a normalization that has occurred for other groups of people, and there's a normalization occurring in our faces at this very moment.
Yeah,
right now, there's a normalization of elevating a level of protection to a group of people that has happened in the last few years, that is happening at this very moment that we're talking. Yet, the most vulnerable.
There's no consequence. So whereas there is no consequence, there's no feeling. If they understand, they don't feel like anything's wrong with they're doing because they're not being punished. I do something wrong, I'm punished. As a child, you do something wrong, you're punished. As an adult, you do something, you're punished. So it's accountability. Hold them accountable. I'm held accountable as a convicted felon. I done a crime, I had to do the time. So what makes them different than me? Because they wear a blue uniform, they wear a badge, they swore in on the Bible to serve and protect. They're not serving and protecting. They are abusing their rights. They're abusing their privileges. But where there's these people in power that have the power to do what they have to do to them, they playing, like we said last week before last, peekaboo. They playing peekaboo. And it's some bull crap where even our own people, and I always reflect back on our people, because those that are in the power to make some decisions and shake some stuff up, they won't, because they're afraid if I do something, I lose my job. If I do something, can't provide for my family. Bump that. We got to start taking some chances. We got to start being brave warriors for us. We got to be brave. If we stop being, we are cowards. Not us. But some of us black people and some of these white people are cowards. You're a coward. You're not a brave heart. You just holding a position because it pays your money, pays your salary, your lease and these things off. You know what I'm saying? Don't bump that, man. We just going along to get along. Yep, I'm good. It's not affecting me. But until one of your kids get killed or somebody in your family, then you want to come out. No. Stay on the porch. Stay peeking out your blind as you've been doing. Accountability, man. It's accountability, man. It's got to be a consequence for a lot of this stuff that is going on. If there's no consequences, they're going to continue to do this nonsense. But guess what? As you said, we got to make a list. And eventually this list, we can put this stuff together with 25 individuals writing a petition. We signing this thing, these things that we need. We demand this. All right, if we don't, we'll keep writing. We'll fill your desk up with these things, requests, until we get some answers, until some people are held accountable in their communities. Even when we start small and we'll go big, but we got to hold people accountable. We're voting you in to do what? Pay your bills every day, send your children to school. Heck, I want to send my kids to school. You know what I'm saying?
Mike, the problem is we're not voting those people in. So they're not going to be accountable to you because you didn't, because like there's a group of folks that look like you, is a bunch of y'all, a bunch of us, and the majority of those folks did not put those people in power. The people that put them in power look nothing like them. So they're accountable to those people, not us. You know what I'm saying? So that's the issue. So that's the thing where I'm frustrated, because if we can figure out a way to have some unification and some representation in that voter space, then those folks would start doing it. There's no incentive for the person in the ivory tower to risk their neck for what?
There's that incentive, or supposed to be that incentive, that was, the moral arc of the universe, or the arc of the universe.
That's a Disney movie, man. That's a Disney movie.
It's definitely not something I'm relying on, but that is supposed to be the motivation, right? So if you are a representative of the people of this great country in some way, shape, or form, you're supposed to be sympathetic and understanding of the people, the least of us. You're absolutely right. It is not in their best interest if they have no connective tissue to that group that's not being represented. What's the motivating factor? We hope morality. Letter from Birmingham jail. Got white folks who just like, hey, it's okay. We'll incremental change and it'll happen. But
the thing is,
we need people that are actively contributing, that are in motion, not sitting back and it just gives us a little bit more time. Go ahead, Mike.
The first thing people would say, I'm not racist. I feel your pain. No, you don't feel my pain. I understand what you're saying. If you understand what I'm saying, do something about it. Make some changes. You know what I'm saying? All right, go on strike. Don't go to work. All right, this is not going how it's supposed to. We refuse to go to work. You know what? Some things happen, some things get better, but they are not going to do that because guess what? My mama or grandma are going to look at me different, or my homeboy going to look at me different. They worried about they in these little groups, and these groups they're in stand for something, but you go to work for something else. I work with you, but I don't really deal with you. It's a difference. See, they work with you, but they don't really deal with you. And that goes for every race. But it's got to be work with you and I deal with you. We got to get something done. Not just I go to work with you and at home I'm talking something totally different. At home, I don't even like black people. At home, I don't like white people. You know what I'm saying? I just do it because I'm at work. That's what we're dealing with in society now,
Yeah, I definitely, my background, I was in industry for quite a while, and we would have moments that you would hang out with a coworker that was not from your neighborhood, so to speak, but that connectivity was still based on a work life, not a strong social life. But I would take moments and make moments teachable where I could. I remember going bowling with some old coworkers and having some beers and good conversation. And one of he actually was a friend, and he's deceased now. But he said, "Yeah, man, that's why." This white guy. He said, "Yeah, man, that's why." That's why Malcolm X had Martin Luther King killed. And I said, "What?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, man, that's why he did that. I said, you don't realize why that's dumb and stupid to say? And I said, what? Nah, that's true. I said, man, Malcolm X was assassinated first. So how could he have anything to do with Martin Luther King? What that did for me and what that should do for anybody I tell that story to, it's not that he was stupid or dumb. He's woefully misinformed, right? But how easy is it to be misinformed or not informed at all about this Black American life? Hey, we've been here, fought in every war, been more American than some people who just got here, but are received and welcomed as we never were. We've got to address it. We've got to fix it. And we can't keep taking the celebratory moments of people that just have melanin and not real ideas that focus specifically on us. I was appalled once again when former President Obama speaking on the most recent shooting of, just, how discouraged and disappointed they are with what happens as far as Black Americans as police. And you was the president, man. It's been happening. Trayvon happened while you were president. Michael Brown happened while you were president. So frustrating, man. We are the most exploited. We're exploited by those that look and claim to be look like us, claim to be us, and some of them are us.
We got Hugh.
Huh? We got Hugh. Yeah. I guess we got to definitely touch on that before we get out of here. That's been a point of conversation. Yeah. So we are the most exploited. We are definitely devalued and maximized for profit to our detriment. I'm appalled at some of the things I see celebrated and labeled as being done for the culture and what have you. I am appalled. But yeah, we got a new Black American coach at the University of North Carolina, and he's proud to be married to a white woman. Proud of his white wife. Where did that come from? Why was that a significant thing for him to share at that moment? And again, I don't care for the symbolic, first of this and first of that. We've been here forever, man. Every time you turn around, it's a first. And we still are the first somethings. So yeah, I don't know. We can talk a little bit about that briefly if y'all want to, or we can just talk about wherever y'all want to go. But yeah, what were you guys' thoughts? Did anybody have any thoughts? What were your thoughts, Meryl, on the hiring of Hubert Davis? I'm not a big college basketball fan. I like Carolina. You went there. I worked on that campus briefly, but man, what were your thoughts?
It's just been a fun week, I was skeptical whether or not that would be the choice, but then I started thinking about it. I was like, it made a lot of sense, and it was a desperate attempt, I think, to kind of say, at first, I think it was a desperate attempt to save any recruits that were leaving because Roy had his time was out, and I thought maybe they was like, well, let's make this steady the ship. It's a good choice, and I wasn't even thinking about the symbolism of having a Black head coach. But what I found is after it was announced, there was this amazing celebration, Black coach, UNC, this really big job. And then I had several conversations with people. So I had different conversations with Black folks and others, but particularly when I had conversations with white brothers and sisters, it was this very big, proud moment of, aren't you so happy? Blah, blah, blah. And anything that I would say that would be counter, then anything that I said that didn't include a bunch of just, celebration and being proud was met with, how could you have anything critical to say? You should be so happy, blah, blah, blah. And then more details come out about the contract. They're not really paying them much money, $500,000 base salary. It's a very easy deal to get out of. The team's going to be trash for the next year or two. It's a setup. And then after he's gone in 2 years, in 2023, when they hire Wes Miller, like they want to, they can say, we hired it. We not racist. We hired the black coach. You know, we did what you said, and everything. You know, George Floyd. Aren't y'all happy? So
Yeah.
it's, I hope the brother does well. But I mean, that press conference just was so funny because it was so boring, and then it was in him because he heard, because when the person asked him about black coaches in particular, he leaned into it. He had good data, but I feel like he thought he was going too far. And he was like, he started doing that Obama thing where it's like, let me come back to the middle. So for anybody who thinks I'm going to be too black, let me make sure that I appease the board of governors. I'm saying, hey, I'm not one of those. You know,
yeah, I'm sure he would definitely deny that was his reasoning. But that's fine. I don't do a lot of assuming, but I can, watching the thing, it was like, where the heck did that come from? And
it was unsolicited, but he felt pressed. He was like, y'all talking too much about black stuff, and I want to make sure everybody knows. Because you know how I've seen it, and I know I've been guilty of it too in the past.
You can assume on that one, Felton.
I mean, have you seen people like in a place where like they start talking about very specific things to support black people, black, and then they feel the pressure of, I love everybody though. Make sure if you get too far in that lane to have something, because we are been programmed to make people that we are dominant culture comfortable. Like, make sure they're okay, so they don't think that I'm something. It's like it's been terrorizing and killing us for years, and we can't have nothing.
You can't be emotional. You can't be too high, too low. Celebrate too hard. You just got to keep it middle of the road, and you got to be considerate. And that was a moment that was cringeworthy. I don't know what I think he might have been, and this is guessing, maybe he intended to get that communicated at some point in a different way, and it slipped his mind. And he said, I forgot to mention this part. So I don't know. I'm post-racial was basically what he was trying.
That's at the beginning.
Okay.
Hey, that's at the beginning, brother.
Oh, that's the beginning of the conference.
I want to recognize my wonderful white wife.
Oh, okay. He's supposed to say that. Yeah, he's supposed to say
me all these years. I've been coaching. Yeah. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. But let me talk about who I am today. That's where he should have said that.
Gotcha. Yeah, you should be as a.
Be proud of your family, your wife, and that support system. But it was like he had to make sure that y'all know I'm not one of them, and I'm not gonna be taking it too far. It ain't gonna be no dashikis and stuff. And
he leaves himself open for that level of scrutiny that you're giving him. He definitely does.
Juneteenth celebration. I celebrate the 4th of July. All that.
Yeah. It's like I'm make sure I let the nation know this is who I am. And hey, I got a white wife. Hey, Danya, do me a favor and bring up that question if you can, because I did forget to go back over that. And I said I would. It was one question. I just want to unpack it briefly. It was a pretty good one. What are your thoughts on marching for representation without a unified solution? How do you prioritize solutions? I think that is a wonderful question, and that is what we're here to do on tonight. So to somewhat answer that question, the solutions that need to be prioritized based on our conversation, and it's been mostly me sharing my solutions, but you guys contributing to the conversation around them, which I'm so grateful. And I think they're all aligned. The conversations are respective of representation, reparations, no specific order, reparations, representation, protections. Those things have to be put in place. And if those protections mean there's a different level of consequences for what you do to the most vulnerable, then so be it. Got to get rid of symbolism. I think that's a solution. I think that's a part of the solutions. We got to stop celebrating just these micro steps or these people that purport themselves to be one thing and are totally something else. There's just more to be done, and we got to find the right people to do it. I hope that answers some of that question. But I'm here for I'll be here all week, as they say. But I'm here for more talk, more conversation, more wrestling with these ideas. Before we get out of here, Jess, I wanted to compliment you on your skill set with the background and your I guess you've been transported back into time. You gonna have to show me that program sometime. But we're gonna
Don't go back too far.
That's too far right there, right? You in trouble right there. Yeah, let's go around the room, get some closing thoughts, and get on out of here for this Thursday evening. Jess, I'll start with you on the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Well, I'm in the midst right now, writing to the governor and the president on the issues of this broadband issue, this digital divide. That it seems like this is a good thing for the country. It seems like these programs are being more forced towards the whiter population, and I need to, like I said earlier, go at them because I just don't. Oh, jeez. It pains me that they think they're for us, but they're not. And I want, like Mike says, to make them accountable. You asked us to vote for you. We did vote for you. Let's see some solutions on trying to even this playing field. I don't mind whites getting part of this pot of money that's coming for the digital divide, but it should be even. Or it should be more towards our side to help us get to the even playing field that whites are on.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're talking about the monies being put aside for infrastructure or being planned to be sent out for infrastructure. I agree. There has to be some specific measures put in place for that. Put that back up, Daniel. I'm gonna read it at the least right quick. Marching is an expression of disagreement. I'm not sure it's necessary to have all solutions, but that's the status quo isn't working. Agreed. It's definitely, anytime there's civil unrest, it's an indicator that something's amiss in the place that's being governed. Yeah, I think we can get to a point where we can communicate those things succinctly. Marching, protesting, but there needs to be a dialogue that takes place that implements progressive measures to address stuff. So yeah, Brother Mike, if you want to maybe mention that or talk about that or just give us some parting words, what you got on your mind?
Yeah, I'd love to touch bases on, but thank you for this platform tonight, Brother Felton and team. Appreciate y'all, man. And I love these discussions right here. But talking about that marching thing, I'm a big fan of marching. I'm a big fan of disturbing the peace, making good trouble. As I rest in peace to our brother John Lewis, because when we making good trouble, that I've been with some great leaders, some official leaders have gotten out there in the streets with us and done this. So what happens is where they in these rooms that we can't get in, they able to talk about these different conversations. That's the great thing. I think of marching. Like I said, after marching, we need to have follow-up meetings. Like if we march this Saturday, next Saturday, we need to be talking about what are we gonna do next? What's the next steps? All right, what are we doing next? Okay, what can we do? Write petitions. What can we do? As Brother Jess said, he's writing the governor and the mayor or the president and the mayor. So we need to start writing these letters, flooding these desks. All right, hold accountability. Okay. If you're not marching, what are you doing? If you silence, your silence is violence. So if you're not marching, you need to be typing. Okay. If you're in the house on the porch, you need to be typing. You need to be doing something. If you don't want to march, you need to be typing. I'm gonna say that again. I know I said 3 or 4 times. Typing letters, making petitions, doing something. If you're upset, if you're not upset, I don't know what's wrong with you. I mean, you got a mental health problem. You need to go get it checked out.
Sustained engagement. I like that idea, Mike. So it took an effort to organize a group of people to march on something. So you got those people together. Sustain that engagement by, as you state, when you're done marching, go have a meeting about what the next steps are. So sustain engagement. I think that'll lead to that representation thing because they're gonna realize you ain't going nowhere.
Right, and one thing, and I've done. I think the training needs to be different for law enforcement. We need to write something different. The training needs to be different. The training they're going through right now does not work. We need to have different training. If there's grievances or complaints filed on these law enforcement, they need to be suspended. Be under investigation. There needs to be something done about this. And it needs to be looked into because there's no way you get all these different grievances. You get different. You get you get 3 strikes on a job, you fired, right? Out here in the factory, if you get too many points, you fired. Why can't he get too many points as a law enforcement, him or she, and she's fired? Oh, because she's got to provide for her family. I got to provide for my family. So what's the difference?
Hey man,
there's no difference.
Yeah, that's another conversation. We can actually square that again, and maybe I will try to reach out and see if my kinfolk will join us for that one. But yeah, I'm in agreement to a high degree in terms of that job is a prestigious one, regardless of the stress and regardless of the salary. It is a prestigious one because you are sworn to uphold the law, sworn to protect and serve. And if you fail to do those things, there should be real consequence. And it seemingly to me, the higher the responsibility, the higher the consequence when you fail to meet it. I mean, a doctor doesn't get to cut off the wrong leg and get away with it, does he? I mean, there's consequences. Meryl, you want to take us out of here?
I don't know if I'll take us out. I'll just add just quickly. I mean, my friends that do organizing work, that do it effectively, they channel anger. They use it to solve problems. They use it to align and organize people. It's more powerful than organized money. But there are these really great organizations that know how to do all three: channel the anger, organize people, and organize money, and they get results. So I'll just leave us with those are things we should be thinking about how to do.
I think that's a good note to ring the bell on. Don, you got anything you want to say, or you want to do the Russell Simmons impression? You still don't know what that is, do you? Young Leo Farmer has a comment. Police need to be forced to carry insurance or something. If they know their premium is about to shoot up, they may think twice about pulling the trigger. Yeah, measures need to be put in place to do something, but it's generally the city or the local governments that end up paying the bill when police does something that causes a civil suit to take place. Yeah, Danya, you good? Anything you want to add? You good? All right.
He's chilling.
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right, man. I see you over there working hard, man. Thanks for producing another wonderful show. Everyone out there in Digiland, digital home, take care. Jess gonna get you some Wi-Fi pretty soon. He gonna take care of everybody.
That's right.
He gonna get us all some high speed fiber wire. Look, y'all have a wonderful evening. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Brother Mike, Jess, Danya, Meryl, y'all have a wonderful evening. Be good out there. Take care.
All right, peace out. Facebook, YouTube. Thanks for joining us.
Deuce.